Painting dark subjects in watercolor can sometimes feel a little scary, especially as a beginner, because if you go too dark too early, you suddenly lose your highlights, everything looks flat, and the color can turn muddy pretty fast. If that's happened to you, this video is going to help a lot, because the fix is actually simple. We're going to change the order you build the painting and use two beginner-friendly tricks that make a huge difference: an underpainting and gentle glazing. I picked the most beautiful dark chocolate-colored horse, so I can show you a layering method that works step by step. We're going to capture the light first, then sculpt the form, and only at the end do we push contrast. That way you always stay in control of your values and you never paint yourself into a corner. I've linked the reference photo in the description below so you can paint along. Here are the main watercolor materials that you will need. I recommend 100% cotton cold-pressed paper for this project because it gives you more time to blend. For brushes, keep it simple, at least 2 round brushes, something in size 4 or 5 for larger washes, and size 0 for crisp edges and small details. A flat brush would be quite helpful for lifting color. And the palette is short and sweet. We'll need yellow and blue for underpainting. This step is often skipped, but it's quite key to getting realistic glow and highlights. Brown and indigo are my main workhorses for every layer on top, and a tiny touch of purple near the end if you want extra richness in the shadows. Totally optional, but gorgeous. As always, if you want to follow the entire process in real time, I'll have a full real-time recording on my Patreon along with the black and white outline and step-by-step photos. Now grab your brushes and let's get started. Alright, let's start with step 1, the underpainting. This is where a lot of the realism begins, and we're going to use a super light, vibrant blue and super light yellow. And it's not because the horse is blue or yellow, it's because watercolors are transparent. So whatever we put down now can quietly shine through the layers later and give us that believable mix of cool and warm light. To keep this simple, I'm going to start on the front leg first, an isolated segment, just to ease into the process, and then I'm gonna move up into the head, and then we'll do the rest of the body. Before I add any color, I always pre-wet with clean water so the paint spreads softly and looks like a natural horse coat. Here's my simple logic for where the colors go. Anywhere the coat is really dark, the highlights often look glossy and cool because they're reflecting the sky. So that's where I'll drop in a whisper of blue. And anywhere the horse is brown, especially along the top planes where the sun hits, the light feels warmer and more golden. So that's where I'll add a hint of yellow. The goal is definitely not to cover the entire horse with blue and yellow. I'm just placing strategic little hints where I want that glow to show later. For example, I can see a touch of cool light near the neck and shoulders, and then more warmth along the top side of the body. Keep this layer very diluted, think value 3 or 4 maximum. Less is definitely more, especially in the early stages. And if the color spreads too far, no stress. Take a clean, slightly damp flat brush and gently lift the extra paint right off your paper. The colors I'm using are phthalo blue, green shade, and yellow ochre. You don't need these exact ones, any blue and warm yellow will work, but I would avoid strongly granulating blues like ultramarine because they add texture and I want this first layer to stay smooth and subtle. If you want to make sure your color is not granulating, just check the tube. Granulating colors typically have a little G on the label. Now don't judge this yet. This layer is supposed to look very light and a little strange. Once it's completely dry, we'll move into the first pass with brown and dark indigo, and I will show you how to build depth without getting too dark too soon. Now let's make sure that the first layer is bone dry, and then we're ready for step 2, which is our first real coat of color. I'm switching to just 2 main colors here, permanent brown and indigo. Mine are both from Daniel Smith, and I'm keeping them very diluted. Still around value 3, maximum 4, so think lots of water, just a hint of pigment. No thick creamy strokes just yet. See, the thing is, if we go too dark now, we won't have any room left to build form and detail later. And of course, with watercolors, we can't follow up on top with lighter pigments. So just like before, I'm starting in the same place on the front leg and work my way up. And the reference photo is my guide here. I'm not guessing, I'm just placing color where I actually see it. On the head, for example, I see more brown sitting through the middle of the face, and then a lot of that deeper, cool value on the nose and across the top of the head. So I'm placing those color segments very lightly. A couple of things to keep in mind as you lay these in. First, you want to be really careful to protect the lightest areas, the places where the sun is hitting hardest, like the top of the leg and around the knee. I'm painting around those highlights, and if my brush strokes look too sharp, I'm softening with a clean, damp brush so my edges don't look outlined. And if your color spreads too far and eats up the highlight, no stress, just lift it with a clean, damp brush and move on. The second thing I want you to notice is that I'm not fussing with details just yet. This is simply a map of color, big color blocks only. The muscle shadows and all the sculpting comes later, and it will be much darker. If we try to incorporate these details now, we'll lose our highlights and midtones way too early. You will also notice that I'm barely touching the very top of the horse right now. That's on purpose because I want that yellow ochre underpainting to stay visible and glow almost all the way until the end. And I will wrap up step 2 by dropping a tiny bit of slightly darker value around the eye and the nostril, not to fully define them yet, just enough so my pencil placement doesn't disappear and I can still see it in the next step. Alright, once everything is fully dry again, we're ready for step 3, and this is where the horse starts looking and feeling more three-dimensional. We're using the same 2 colors, brown and indigo, but the goal changes. Up to now, we were laying a foundation and mapping out big color shapes. Now we're going to start sculpting the form by focusing on the darkest areas and the shadow side of the muscles. You may want to switch to a smaller round brush here to get those fine details. This is the step where your reference photo becomes your best friend, and you may want to zoom in on certain areas and look closely. Notice how the values shift very subtly across the body. Horses aren't shaded in one flat stripe. There are these little changes where the muscles turn, where the rib cage curves, where the neck rounds, and where parts of the animal are turning away from the source of light. So instead of painting details, think of it as adding gentle glazes of color in those areas that are in the shadow. A slightly darker pass under the neck, a soft shadow where the chest curves, a deeper value along the underside of the belly, and maybe more definition on the legs where the form turns away from the sunlight. And because we're already having 2 layers underneath our underpainting glow, plus that very light first coat of color, we can build these shadows slowly without them looking heavy. If your earlier layers stayed light, this step will feel so much easier. Now, you might be wondering why I'm using indigo instead of straight black, especially because the legs and parts of the mane look almost black. So in watercolor, black can get really muddy really fast, especially when you're layering and mixing it with other colors and you're still learning and getting comfortable with the medium. It can look very harsh and unnatural, and honestly, we almost never see true black in nature. Most black is really just a very deep version of another color or the absence of color and light altogether. You've probably heard people say mix your own black with primaries to come up with something much more natural. So red, yellow, and blue together will give you a wonderful black, which is great. But I want to keep it simple here and avoid mixing. So I'm using indigo straight from the tube as a shortcut because it has a very dark mass tone. That just means what it looks like at full strength. And when it's diluted, it gives a beautiful, deep blue shadow that layers really well with everything else. Sometimes I will even mix my brown and indigo together to get a rich natural chocolate color, especially on the neck. That blue undertone is what keeps the brown looking deep and believable. If I used black and mixed it with my brown, it would mute the brown and make it look dirty much faster. As I'm glazing these shadows, I'm still protecting the brightest areas, especially along the back where the sun is hitting. And you'll notice that I'm barely touching that top ridge because I want the warm underpainting to stay glowing and clean. Also, don't overwork. If a shadow edge looks too sharp, soften it with a clean damp brush and then leave it alone. It's better to do 2 gentle passes than 1 heavy one. And here's the best part. By the end of step 3, the horse should finally start looking more real, but maybe still a little bit unfinished, a little bit messy in some areas, and that's perfect because now we've earned that final layer. So with everything mostly dry again, let's move straight into step 4, where we will start adding more definition, introduce that subtle color variation in the shadows, and finally paint the mane and the tail with much quicker, loose, sweeping strokes. Step 4 is where everything will finally come together and we can work a lot faster. I'm going to begin with the mane because I purposely left it until now. And at this point, we already have a solid foundation, so all we're doing is building texture and definition on the rest of the horse. So first I'm going to prep the mane area with a quick soft underlayer, a touch of brown where the tips catch some sunlight, and a bit of blue closer to the base for cool depth. I will even sneak in the tiniest hint of purple just for visual interest in the shadows. Now I'm going to let that sit for a minute or 2 so the water sinks and the surface becomes almost dry, not shiny. That timing makes a huge difference. And then I come back to define the hair strands, and this is where technique matters. This is called negative painting. So instead of trying to paint the lighter hairs, I paint the dark shapes around them, leaving the lightest strands completely untouched. We talk a lot about negative painting on this channel because it's honestly one of the biggest watercolor secrets. It's how you get those crisp, light details without reaching for white gouache or masking fluid. It's a different way of seeing because you're painting around the light. Once the mane is in, I carry that same mindset down into the rest of the horse and start deepening the darkest shadows. This is the stage where you can finally use your darkest mixtures with confidence, bringing the indigo much closer to a deep, almost black value and using the brown at a richer strength. But the rule is focus on small areas only. So notice that I'm working on very select dark accents like the cheek, the tip of the nose, the nostril, the deepest areas on the neck and the chest, without covering the midtones and highlights that we worked so hard to protect. And every time I drop in a dark accent, I soften the edge with a clean damp brush so it melts into the previous layer instead of looking stamped on. Color-wise, I'm still mixing quite a bit of indigo and brown for that natural chocolate tone. Sometimes I'm adding purple into the mix, especially on the neck and chest. On the legs, I lean more into pure indigo for strength, and on the belly and sides, I keep more brown to preserve warmth. And now we're ready for the tail. For this, I actually start with medium values right away, some blue and brown, and then I deepen it gradually while the wash is still active and damp. That gives me a softer, less detailed tail, which is exactly what I want because it helps the back of the horse feel slightly out of focus. Once this layer dries, the horse will look almost complete, and in the next step, we'll decide whether to stop here or push it with a final optional layer of darkest darks and finishing touches. At this point, you can absolutely call the horse finished, but I always recommend one last thing before you decide. Step away and let it fully dry, because watercolors have this very normal, although sometimes quite annoying thing called a drying shift, where everything can look a little lighter, a little duller, and slightly more muted once everything is completely dry, especially if you come back the next day. So beginners often think they did something wrong, but it's just a part of how watercolors behave, even with the highest quality paints. So instead of seeing it as a problem, I like to see drying shift as an invitation, a chance to rebalance the painting, bring back the contrast, sharpen a few details, and really decide what you want the final mood and style to be. this is what the step 5 that you're seeing is all about. A final optional layer where we pull everything together. I'm going back with pure indigo in a few very small, very intentional places to deepen the darkest darks, so some details read almost pure black. Think tiny accents around the nostril, the deepest creases, the sharpest shadow pockets, just enough to increase the value range without swallowing the midtones. And then this part is totally personal. I'm also going to add a few unexpected color accents for visual interest. So I'm using a stronger touch of phthalo blue to punch up a couple of cool highlights, maybe under the mane and around the shoulders. This is definitely more vivid than the reference photo, but I love the intense color, so this is purely a stylistic choice. And that's really the point of this final layer. It's not just more detail. It's your opportunity to bring the painting into your own style, your contrast preferences, your color sensibility, and your taste. The reason we have this freedom now is because we were patient in the early layers. We stayed light, we let the glow build, and we didn't rush the darkest values too soon. When we do that with watercolor, we earn the moment at the end where we can elevate the whole painting with confidence. I asked my Patreon subscribers what kind of background they wanted to see, and they had so many great ideas, everything from ocean waves to sand splatter and even something fiery, since 2026 is the year of the fire horse. In the end, I decided to go with a Japanese maple. It's subtle enough to keep the focus on the horse, but it gives those little splashes of red to carry the fire theme without overwhelming the painting. Now I'm curious, if this were your painting, what background would you add, if any? Let me know in the comments below. And if you want to watch the entire process in real time with full pacing and all the little decisions explained along with the black and white outline, you can find the extended recording over on my Patreon. And if you're interested in diving into concepts like negative painting, drying shift, and really building deep understanding of pigment properties so you can progress from beginner paintings into more complex subjects, make sure to check out my most popular video, 25 watercolor secrets in 25 minutes. Thank you for watching and painting with me. I will see you soon with more watercolor magic.